Hi everybody, it's Carli at Let's Bead. Happy Friday. So today is time for our online tips and tricks video, and I have a question. How many of you have a dining room table or a work area that's covered in bags of your purchases from Let's Bead? I'm guilty of this. So so what happens when you buy materials for a particular project, and when I get home, I don't want to put the materials away, because if I put them in the place that I stored those types of materials, I'll forget that I bought them for a specific project, and then it'll never get made, right? So I'm going to show you some options today that might help keep you organized, reduce having so many bags on your desk or your work area, and give you some solutions that might work. Now, again, everybody has different space situations, so not everything may work for everyone. These are just some ideas that I wanted to share to get you thinking. So let's go ahead and get started, and I'm going to share some of the things that I use at home in my studio. Okay, and I am going to be moving around a little bit, so hopefully it's not going to be too noisy for you, so I apologize in advance. Okay. So this is one of the solutions that I use to keep my projects organized. So when I buy materials for a project, I use these little containers. These are actually photo containers. And when I buy something for a particular project, the materials go in the container. If I have instructions, if I have a drawing, maybe I drew something that I wanted to make, that goes in the container as well, keeping it all together. And then I keep them in this container. Now this container is like it's a hard plastic, and it fits like 7 of these little boxes. And I got this black basket at Staples, and it works perfect for my area. And they're stackable, so I can stack another on top if I wanted to. They got the little corners. And in my studio, it's black with chartreuse green. So I wanted something black, and this was perfect. Now those containers, the photo containers, they actually came, in a container like this. And I ordered it on Amazon, and I'm happy to share the link where I got them. If anybody wants it, just ask. And this came with 16, 8 on each side, of those photo containers. I just didn't like the looks of this in my studio, and it was awfully big and bulky, so I used the little black basket, and that works perfectly for me, and I can stack them on top of my hutch. But that's how they originally come. And it makes it nice, because a lot of times if I go someplace, if I travel, or if I go visit my mom, I take a project with me, and I can just grab the container, the little plastic container for the project, and everything's right there. So that's one option. Another thing that I use a lot of is these plastic containers, and I label everything so that when I'm looking on the shelf, I know exactly what's in the container. I also like to use clear containers so that I can see through them. So this just pops open, and it's got, several different compartments. Depending on the materials, a lot of times if it's just like metal findings or like ear wires, posts, stuff like that, I leave them right in the bag, especially if they're sterling silver, so that they don't get tarnished from the air. And it's easier for me to see how many I have versus having a clump of loose earring posts or ear wires. I can count the bags easier than I can count the post. So I like to leave them like that, sorted by type. Also, if you make jewelry to sell, one thing that would be helpful is pricing your pieces, your materials as you get them, so that you know how much you spent on them. So when you're pricing the piece of jewelry that you made, you know what to charge for it. So I just created this, on the computer, just a basic little sheet that tells me how many items, the cost per item, and then the total value. And I do it in pencil and update it every time I remove a piece, because also at the end of the year I have to let my accountant know how much value I have in materials in my studio. So I use these, and it's just an easy way for me to keep track of everything. I don't have it on the computer. So just wanted to mention that. And then I'm going to show you another one. So one of my favorite artists is Anne Lichtenstein, and you may have heard of her. She has Garden Beads, and we sell some of her work here in the store. And so when I organize things, I tend to organize by the type of material, or in this case by artist. So all of these beautiful goodies are from made by Anne Lichtenstein. And so it just makes it easy for me. I know that if I'm going to do a pair of earrings and I want some of Anne's leaves, I just go to this container and can find it there. I also use them for, semi-precious stones. People will ask a lot of times, do you store by color? Do you store by size or by shape? And it depends on what works best for you. Everybody's mind works differently. For me, I prefer to store by the type of material it is. So I'll store, for example, labradorite is one of my favorite stones. So I have a lot of that, and I keep all the labradorite together in a container, and then in each compartment it's separated with the different cuts or sizes of the stone that I have. And that just works for me. Another thing that I have a lot of, I do a lot of macrame, I do a lot of crochet, and I do knotting. So I have a lot of Ceylon, and I wanted a way that was easy to store the Ceylon that would help me be able to see what I have and also know what size it is, because Ceylon comes in micro, fine, regular, and heavy. And so I needed to be able to separate. So I decided to get a thread organizer, and you can pick this up at a sewing store. And I labeled it, this is the regular. And it has the pegs, and I just slide the spool on the peg. Now, one thing that I didn't do in the beginning that I do now is I keep the Ceylon in the bag, and I do it for a couple reasons. I found that if I had multiple projects on my desk that I was working on, and maybe I was using two different size Ceylon, I'd have to look at it and try to figure out which size was which to know what container it went back into. Also, if I was running out of that color and I needed to buy more, if I discarded the bag, I wouldn't know the color. So what I do now is I just take a pair of scissors and I just leave the bag on, poke the scissors through the hole, and then I just slide that back on the peg and store it that way. And it also protects your Ceylon, keeps it from getting dusty. Even though it's in a container, it can still get dusty. And so that's what works for me. And you can even fit like extra, like not all of these spools are on pegs. So you can fit extra spools in between the pegs. So that allows you to get more in the box. So that's an option. Another storage option are these flip-top box containers, and there's these two sizes. Now, if you've come in the store before and we're looking for just a couple jump rings or some Swarovski crystals, stuff that we have loose behind the counter in the drawers. This is what we store them in. And they work really nicely to flip the top open and be able to dump the pieces out. And the sizes are, this one is 7/16 by an inch by 1 7/8, and you get 20. And this one is 7/16 by an inch by 3 inches, and you also get 20. And these are a bit longer. I use a lot of these long ones, and I'm going to show you how I use those. So I have a lot of head pins, and I have this container that I keep my head pins in, and I store all of my head pins in these little boxes. And what I do is I will put on it like the gauge of the metal, the length of the head pin, and then the type of metal. So in this case, it's sterling silver. And I store them in that. It works great for me. And this container is actually, it doesn't have any, they're just long compartments all the way across. So this works perfectly for the head pins, and it's more like a hard plastic. So I keep those in there. Another thing I'd like to show you is I have these little jars. So I used to have all of my metal findings in some sort of plastic container like this that would have compartments, and they were a little bit smaller. And I would do it by metal. So I would have a copper box, and it would have all of my crimps, my crimp covers, my wire guards, all my copper spacers, you know, anything like that. And then I'd have a box for, you know, silver plate, sterling silver, you know, antique brass, whatever. So I had all these different boxes, and it became really inconvenient because if I needed multiple things, I was constantly going through multiple containers to try to get to it. Or if I wanted to take a project with me, if I went away for the weekend, you know, I'd have to take all these containers instead of just truly what I needed. So I found these little glass jars, and I thought these were a perfect solution to, you know, get rid of some of those containers. These don't take up as much space, and I wanted them so that I could keep them on my desk. So right now I'm looking for like a nail polish acrylic holder that has like the different steps that maybe I could put on my desk where these things are easily accessible, because these are the things that I use the most. So I want them near me so I can get to them easily and not have to dig for them. So that was one solution that works for me. Another option is these little containers. I thought, well, this is just really convenient. So I got these at a kitchen store, and these are magnetic. So there's a magnet on the bottom, and they're actually made for spices. But you don't have to use them for spices, right? So in this one, I have just some buttons. In this one, I have jump rings, and in this one, I have some cord ends. Now, what's nice about this is because they're made for spices, you know, they've got the vents here, but then they also have the bigger vent. And that means, if I'm going the right way, I can just twist it open, get out the jump rings I need, and twist it closed. Easy peasy. So I just thought that was a nice solution. So, you know, I'm getting just like some sort of metal sheet that I can lean up against the back of my hutch at my desk where I sit, and then I can stick these to it and have those items easy to get to. How many of you have a lot of seed beads? So I have an option for you for seed beads, and this might be, if you don't have enough seed beads, this week and it ends tomorrow, but our special this week is save 20% off of seed beads. So that would be sizes 6, 8, 11s, and 15s. So stop in and take advantage of that. It ends tomorrow. Today we're here till 6, tomorrow we're here till 5. Anyways, this is a bead tube tower, and this holds, oh, I'm sorry, let me tilt this up a little bit so you can see it better. But this holds seed beads, and it's Velcro, so you can undo it and lay it flat. You can also change the way it stands. But a nice way to store your seed beads. And we do carry this in the store. It's called the Bead Tube Tower. If you need help finding it, let us know, and we'll be happy to help. Just a couple more options left. I'm going to turn the camera back down again. And this is actually the store's container, and this is how we store our gold-filled jump rings that we use for chainmail. And this container comes with all these additional containers in it, and it's great for, you know, storing findings or storing beads, you know, whatever you need. And then here's a smaller one, but and we have them labeled by size, and you can get this at Harbor Freight. So Harbor Freight has a lot of great, you know, storage options as well for storing different types of materials. So, you know, check that out. And I have another one. If you travel with your beads, we have this this little travel kind of kit that you can use. And it just opens up. You can put your materials inside, you can put your tools inside, and then you can work here on the mat. The mat is nice and soft. It feels very velvety, but great for on-the-road beading. And it just holds back up. Okay, the last thing I want to mention is, you know, there is a lot of waste today in the world. So, you know, don't feel like you have to buy, you know, something new to store your materials. You can also find things at home to store some of your materials in. So I have an example of something that can be converted. Right now it still has some pretzels in it, but when they're gone, you can wash this up, and this would be a great option for storing bead soup, maybe storing some extra pieces of leather that, you know, has been trimmed that you can, you know, reuse on other projects, storing ribbon, storing cord, storing seal-on. You could put the seal-on in there. Just a lot of different options. So think about some of the things that you have at home that you could reuse. Peanut butter jars, baby food jars, stuff like that. And you could even decorate them. You could paint them to make them look nice. So, you know, really there are a lot of options. So just wanted to mention that. And then the last thing I just want to ask of you is, well, two things really. Drop a comment and let me know if you watched the video and what you thought. Hopefully you found it helpful. But also, I want you to share a picture of how you store some of your materials, or do a video. And if you want to share your whole studio, you're more than welcome. But, you know, sharing how you do it might help give ideas to someone else if some of the ideas I shared may not work for their space. So feel free to do that. We'd love to see how you store your jewelry making supplies, and share ideas with other folks. So I hope you enjoyed today. Hope you have a wonderful weekend, and we will see you again on Wednesday for our online project. Take care.